Welcome to the Free Motion Quilting lesson number 2 for the Skill Builder block of the month. I'm going to start with my M- block, and to begin, make sure that you reference Free Motion Quilting lesson number 1 from the Skill Builder block of the month. It was a really long lesson, but it covered a lot of the basics of free motion quilting, some of the rules about starting and stopping, and how we're going to deal with our borders, things I'm not going to repeat in this lesson. So definitely go to PileOFabric.com and go to the Events tab and then click on Skill Builder Block of the Month. That page has all of the posts, all of the downloads, and all of the videos that you need. So get refreshed, and then let's begin our blocks. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to stitch in the ditch around the entire block right here. Once you've stitched in the ditch all the way around the entire block, we are going to start back exactly where we started. I have not broken my thread. I am actually going to just travel stitch down this side, and I'm going to start right here in this point on my black triangle here. And I'm going to reference my diagram here that I already drew out, and we are going to do the wavy lines through the black triangle that we already drew in the earlier videos. And I'm going to want to start in this corner down here as opposed to starting right here in the center. So I'm going to travel stitch to my point. I'm going to rotate my block here so it's easier to do. So right now I have the point facing me. The bulk of the block is for the most part in the back of my machine. And now I'm going to begin my wave. And I've reached back to the other corner of my triangle, and now what I'm going to do is actually stitch in the ditch along the triangle and the colored piece back to the side that I just started on. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to my next black triangle. My next black triangle is actually right here, and what I'm going to do, instead of breaking thread, I'm actually going to travel stitch along my colored piece to my triangle point down here. And then rotate my block, and I'm going to go ahead and do my wave again. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Now, on this square, I don't have the stitch like I did on the edge from when I stitched in the ditch. So I'm actually going to stitch in the ditch, making sure that all sides of the triangle have been stitched. And I'm going to have to do a little travel stitching, kind of going over the stitches that I already had. That's fine. this conveniently gets me to my next triangle. So you're going to continue doing this. Try and map it out so that you don't have to break your thread and reposition into a new spot. You can get pretty far if you just travel stitch in between each block. Go ahead and do the wave in each triangle, and then we'll move on to the colored pieces. Alright, I just finished quilting the wave in each black triangle, and I wanted to also mention that when I was doing that, I was using black thread on the top and black thread on the bottom. And just a reminder to look at your bottom stitching often, just to make sure that your tension is still correct and things are looking good. Sometimes you can get in the momentum and your top stitches look really good and you forget to look at the back, and then you turn it over and you're like, yikes. So definitely keep an eye on that. Now, what I'm going to do next, while I still have the black thread in my machine, is quilt over my white 1-inch mark and quilt my borders. I'm going to also do just a wave in my borders. I'm going to go off over the 1-inch mark. As I've said before, we will be cutting our blocks down to 14.5, and so the white mark actually makes sure that the whole block is quilted. So I'm going to rotate my block, and I'm going to work horizontally for this wave, going from left to right. Stop and reposition. Alright, I'm going to stop there and put some more bobbin thread in. Continue doing this all the way around your border until you have your background pieces completely quilted, and we'll switch over to the color thread. I've rethreaded my machine with my purple thread in the top, purple thread in the bobbin, and I'm going to begin working on my M' color pieces. The first thing I'm going to want to do is go ahead and put your needle down, bring your threads up. I've got both threads to the back, and I'm going to stitch in the ditch around this M' shape. That's basically a diamond here. And then I'm going to begin stitching my design that I am going to do, which I've decided to do these large bubble, like they're almost like pebbles. They'll be stitched the same way, but they're very large, and some of them will be partially cut off. So first go ahead and stitch in the ditch, and then we'll begin the pebbles. I've stitched in the ditch from the top of my diamond right here, and I've gone down the side to the center, and this is a great way to accomplish both of these two purples at once. So I'm actually going to continue stitching the ditch on my next shape, and then work my way around back to the center, and then finish the other side of my shape. Alright, I've stitched in the ditch around my purple shapes here, and I'm going to go ahead and start making my large bubbles, or you can call them large pebbles. And I'm just going to rotate my block so that I'm kind of working towards myself. You may have to play with that. You may have to try and work away from yourself like this, or to the side. Something that I recently learned is just that's honestly a preference. You do not always have to stitch towards yourself. I feel like I can see where I'm going if I'm stitching towards myself, and it's at the same movement sort of as if you were sewing regularly, but some people can stitch better different ways, so just go ahead and try it until you feel the most comfortable. So I'm going to do really large bubbles, and I'm going to start off doing one that's coming off the edge and then work my way in. So I just travel stitched back so that I can come to the next bubble. And I'm going to continue filling these bubbles in just like so. You have to travel stitch on some. These bubbles have a bit less travel stitching than our really small pebbles. If you do have to travel stitch, you want to just try really hard to stay on your previous line and just work your way around. When you're done, work your way basically to the center and then move on to the next piece here without having to break your thread, and continue all the way to the end of this purple piece. I have re-threaded my machine with my orange thread on the top and bottom, and I've actually got my quilt halo. I actually have two of them stacked on top of each other that I'm going to use instead of my gloves right now. When I'm doing quilting in an area that basically fits inside of this hoop, I really, really like using the hoop. It's really comfortable, and I feel like I have a little bit more control when I'm actually using it. So for these big bubbles, it works pretty well. So I'm going to continue on doing my bubbles just like I did in the purple. And before I do that, I'm going to stitch in the ditch around my diamond shape. And the two orange pieces are actually separate from each other, so I'm going to deal with them one at a time. So first I'll stitch in the ditch, do my bubbles, and then break my thread and move to my next orange piece. So I just quilted the entire orange piece. I'm going to go ahead and bring my needle up, move my halos out of the way, and pull my thread out, trim them, and move on to my next orange. And that will finish this block.